Like wake up in the morning, oh my gosh, I hope I'll get it right today.
I just talk about myself so much, I have to say it a lot. So yeah, that's what you get for being egotistical person,
Oh yeah, the stage is yours. I'll just do
Amazing.
one thingy. I will open your presentation if you don't mind.
No, please do.
Please do. Then I will.
Being the last speaker of the day is good news in itself automatically. So, I come here with a smile. That's the reason. Because, there's drinks and networking afterwards, so it shouldn't be too hard. But yeah, just to get everyone in the mood, I typically start with this little video. So hopefully you get in the same mood as I do.
I think Revolut is probably one of the most ambitious companies on the planet.
Everything that you can think about in finance, if we can make it, 10 times better, then we want to do it.
Even if things are not possible.
I think Revolut is quite a scary concept for a lot of our competitors.
All other people with who we spoke said to us the same. It wasn't possible.
That didn't stop us. That, in opposite, encouraged us to dig deeper.
Is not just an exercise, but more like an attitude.
Trying again until we solve it. We were all, non-bankers. This ability to learn fast, to compete, to win was actually essential, for us.
If you want to build like a product that 50 million people use, you need to build something that they actually want to use.
Our customers, they're so engaged with the product. We listen to their ideas.
If you do work together, you can really take on, these huge incumbents.
It feels like we're making history.
We see the future where money is just a resource that works always for you in the most efficient way, creating the most value for your life, and so that you can create value maybe as well for others.
So that's us, that's Revolut. Hopefully the sound was good enough in the back of the room as well. If not, it's on YouTube. So, with a good sound system, it's amazing. And really what I'm gonna talk about today, because, clearly when I was approached by the organizers, I'm like, well, you see, I'm not a developer, so I'm not gonna be able to cover any of the, professional topics. And then they're like, well, you know what, we might go with someone motivational, inspirational. Why don't you talk about your culture at Revolut? I'm like, oh, is that inspirational? Okay, let's do that then. So that was a nice compliment, thank you. So really, what I'm going to be talking about today is what it is that we're working towards and what makes it a very different ambition from a lot of things that are out there. And how are we getting there? Because our internal processes that are taking us there are also quite different from everything else. So in this speech, I titled it, Building the World's First Truly Global Bank. We'll talk a little bit about how we understand truly global banking. And then again, about what we do as a company to get there. Because, like our guy said in the video, it's a pretty ambitious goal. And the story of Revolut is a story that was never meant to be a success. Because in the beginning, when the founders, Nick and Vlad, were pitching the idea and going for seed money, it was pretty hard. They did not succeed, and the investors were not willing to buy into this whole idea. So I start with this ugly slide, which is actually a screenshot. And this original slide was made by our CEO. So I'm not sure if he's going to be happy that I call his slides ugly, but it's not too pretty anyway. So a couple of things that I want you to, let's see if I have, no, whatever. So the number on the bottom, this was, taken from his seed pitch. So on the bottom, you see that at a time, he was asking for 1.5 million pounds to make it happen. So essentially 1.5 million pounds to get our MVP going. And this is throwback 2015. And he was projecting, fingers crossed, that in year 4, after the company is launched, we will have 260,000 users. And then in year 5, hopefully, again, maybe somehow 420,000 users. So again, two founders pitching to the investors, and this is what they're hoping for in year 4 and year 5. Fast forward to today, this is where we're at now. So the company is 4.5 years old. We're getting close to 11 million retail signups in 4.5 years. We also have 300,000 business customers, so meaning companies that have opened their business accounts with Revolut. And our business accounts is also one of our main money makers for us as a company. So this is why, we're very happy with this number. The company is now I put 2,100 people, but actually Tuesday is our onboarding day of the new joiners in the company. So just because I submitted the slides yesterday, this might be a different number today. We might be 2,200 actually, because the growth is crazy. And the total investment that we've gotten to date is $336 million at a valuation of 1.7 billion US dollars. And typically when I speak about the growth of Revolut and the story how we got here, I start everything with this one question. What do fintechs and bacteria have in common? Which is, you know, not a very appetizing thing to think about, I guess, but it's going to make sense in a while. Just bear with me. So, you know, I think the one thing that everybody knows about bacteria is this one really scientifical sort of proof that is passed on from generation to generation. The 5-second rule. You know, like if you drop a piece of food on the floor, you pick it up in less than 5 seconds, it's still okay to eat that, because apparently the bacteria doesn't jump on it in 5 seconds. Well, clearly the bacteria doesn't think that way. And if it sees something that it likes, it goes after it. So really, and this is science, I'm not making this up, this is actually true, trust me. So bacteria, you know, in order to survive, it doesn't have a plan, but it has the ultimate goal. So, you know, it doesn't think that, okay, now I'm going to take a step to the left, 2 steps to the right, and then figure it out from there. It has a general goal, and the goal is to survive and to dominate the organism that it inhabits, whatever type of bacteria that is. And there's another player out there in the world who operates on the exact same way. So fintechs, a lot of fintech companies, and Revolut as well. So to say that, yes, in many cases, you know, it's kind of counterintuitive to say that we never have a 5-year plan, because we are still small and agile enough to work in response to the market needs. So, you know, if we see something that is potentially beneficial, that is potentially a good market opportunity, like cryptocurrencies, for example, we go after it. When the company was built, nobody was thinking about cryptocurrencies. But then at a point, our CEO was, I think, in Belarus. And he gets in a taxi, and a taxi driver asks him, so how's Bitcoin doing today? Have you heard anything? And this was the light bulb moment for him that, you know, if everybody on the street is talking about Bitcoins, that might be a pretty good way to make money. And so we did. So again, something that wasn't planned, but we just kind of like bacteria jumped, you know, towards it because it was beneficial. And so this growth, also the growth of the value that we bring. I like this metaphor here, comparing it with the fax machine effect. Even though I can't remember when was the last time I saw a fax machine in real life, but the example is quite good. Imagine a day when you only have one fax machine, one physical fax machine in the world. It's useless because you cannot do anything with it. Then when you get the second one, the value of the first one skyrockets. Then when you build the third one, the value of the first two goes up because now they can connect to each other, they can communicate and bring value to people. And that's the same way that Revolut works as well. So the value of Revolut as a product grows for me personally if I have more and more people around me that use it, because, you know, I can send peer-to-peer transfers, transfers with GIFs and all sorts of stuff. So our mission and our question was to figure out how do we build the kind of product that the users would sell for us. Because again, you know, we were a startup, very broke company. So the beginnings of it were just, you know, the founders, 2 guys sitting on the floor because they couldn't afford furniture. So, and they were competing with a massive banking industry, with an industry that had all the marketing money, all the growth money, everything that you can ask for, everything that these guys didn't have. So we had to figure out a way, how do you grow and how do you save this marketing money? How do you utilize your users so that your users would want to talk about your product? And we did. I love this slide because it raises a lot of eyebrows. People are like, nah, I'm not buying that. But yeah, so we grew from 0 to 4 million users with 0 paid advertising. And by advertising, I mean, you know, you wouldn't see Revolut's ad on television or hear Revolut on the radio, or we never paid to be featured as speakers in international events, you know, something that's also a kind of user acquisition tool. So all this growth essentially was all PR and this magic of the word of mouth marketing. And the word of mouth marketing is the exact same thing. It's users being so happy about your product that they choose to talk about it to their peers, to their family, their friends. But then, when you think about products that become viral, you think of, funny cat videos, that's what I think about. Or, you could recommend a book because it's easy to recommend. You could recommend a restaurant or a movie. But, when you think about a financial service provider, it's a complicated product. It doesn't exactly roll off your tongue to say, you're never going to believe this amazing financial service provider that I just found, See? So it's hard to explain it. It's hard to get people excited about it. But somehow our users, still started doing that. And you can see it in the speed of growth, because it took us 2.5 years to get to our first 1 million users. Then after those 2.5 years, it only took us 6 months to get to our second 1 million users. Then after that, we were signing up 1 million new users every 3 months, and our personal best is 1 million new signups in 32 days. But that was already later on the upper side of the curve, when we were already experimenting with various paid referral systems, affiliate deals, and all that. But just to reiterate, so the beginning, this whole growth was because the product was exciting enough for people to talk about it. But to get to that growth, you really do have to work on a different mentality. And it's I think for me, the easiest way to explain Revolut, not even events, so even if I meet anybody who doesn't know about the product, is to talk about our ultimate vision, the one that I mentioned in the beginning. So our ultimate goal is to become the first ever truly global mobile bank. Now, a lot of people go, well, there are a lot of global banks already. But when you think about it, in these cases, people are actually talking about banks that have branches globally. So for example, if I'm a Barclays customer in the UK and I have my current account in the UK and I move to Japan, that doesn't make me a Barclays customer in Japan. I don't get an account there automatically. I have to, go through whatever visa processes, referencing, proof of address, I don't know. So depending on the country where you go, it can take anywhere from 2 hours to 6 months to open a local banking account. And 6 months is an actual example in Norway. That country is notorious for that. So for me to think that, it's 2020 and people can move countries and be legally employed and still unable to receive their salaries to their bank account because they can't get a bank account. To me, that's already quite ridiculous. And that's exactly what we as a company are fighting against. So this is our vision, that every Revolut customer, it doesn't matter what country you're coming from, it doesn't matter what country you go to, you should be able to open a local current account on your smartphone in less than 2 minutes. As long as you're not, an international criminal, compliances and check and all that. So among all the services that we're going for is, our growth goal, 100 million clients in 5 years. In the next 5 years, not 5 years in total, because that would put us in an awkward situation. Current account in 2 minutes, multi-currency account, so like in the example, anything from currencies to cryptocurrencies. Full control of your card and your accounts. Now with the open banking, we're already doing the internal beta for it, so it's amazing to see all other accounts on Revolut as well. Safe transactions online and full control of your transactions on your app. Spending analytics, budgeting, saving. Again, already savings accounts are launched in the UK for the UK users with 1.35% daily APR, which is amazing. Commission-free trading platform, which finally democratizes the whole service and makes it available for virtually anyone. As long as you KYC, then you're able to use it. You don't have to go through millions of papers and processes as you typically have to with a bank. And naturally free international transfers, commission-free international transfers. Now, one question that I typically get is like, so you essentially do everything that a bank does, but just, you have a prettier app. Well, thank you for the compliment about the app, of course, but the difference is way bigger than that. Because the main difference between us and the incumbent banks, as they call it, is the difference between being truly digital and being digitized or digitalized. So what I mean by being digitalized is pretty well illustrated. Just a couple of recent, fairly recent headlines about how the big banks are spending billions of money to renew their tech, to consolidate their tech with what they're going for, and to digitalize. So again, if you look at these numbers, 13 billion, 20 billion, just 2.3 billion. And if you go back to the first slide where I showed that we only needed 1.5 million for the MVP. You see the difference, how far along we've gotten, just with that. Of course, we've gotten all the investments and everything. But the catch up that the banks are playing now puts them in a position that I like this analogy from hockey games. Because in hockey, if you look at where the puck is at the moment, and this is where you're going, by the time you get there, the puck is already going to be on the other side. So really, if you want to be, in control of the situation and be ahead, you have to go to where the puck is going. So, to bring it back to the banking and fintech terms, the banks are going towards where the puck is. So, now all the money that they're pouring, all the billions of dollars, is to catch up with basically what the fintechs are already doing. And by the time the banks catch up, because they have to consolidate, they have to train people, they have to consolidate all their systems globally. So by the time they get there, the fintechs and the puck is going to be all the way out there, hopefully. And we've been successful. So these are a couple of wins that we had this year. The Tech Track 100 and the Deloitte's Fast 50, calling us the fastest growing UK company. I especially love this number on the bottom. So the 3-year average revenue growth was, a lot of people think, 48.4%. It's actually 48,477%. Very uncomfortable to say, but a very nice number to be happy about. The Financial Times are calling our revenue structure a revolution, and the numbers show that we are by far the only UK fintech that is able to generate revenue. So clearly, we sort of see where the puck is going, and hopefully, we are the puck. And a couple of numbers, again, from our last financial results. Revenue grew to 58 million. Cost of sales grew by nearly 250%. Loss for 2018 after tax, 32 million. The revenue growth, gross profit, a lot of numbers. Anyway, let's talk about the really important bit, about what is Revolut and what are the people that bring the company to these results. Because like I said, it takes a pretty different mindset to build a product that scales like that, and to work in a way that that is sustainable. And it was pretty funny, actually. 2-3 months ago, I was doing a keynote in Lithuania for a Lithuanian bank, Šiaulių bankas. And after the talk, somebody came up to me and they're like, yeah, but come on, how do you make your developers so interested in, how do you make your developers work? I'm like, excuse me? And they go, well, our developers are just kind of comfortable. So, if you give them a deadline that's a little too ambitious, they go like, nah, I don't feel like doing that. Maybe I'll look for something else. And to me, that was such a radically different question, because I'm like, I cannot even imagine somebody at Revolut saying that, because the reason why you get to Revolut and why you apply to work at Revolut is because you're going after these ridiculously ambitious goals and targets and KPIs. I mean, one true story from our insider kind of life. When we first hit, because every day you're tracking the new user signups. First it's 2 new users a day, then it's 10, then it's 1,000. Then one day we finally got to 10,000 new user signups a day. Massive day for everyone. We're happy, people are celebrating. At the end of the day, we're in a meeting room with Nick, the CEO. And maybe some of you have heard him speak or met at events. He is a Russian man of very few words. So typically he likes to answer a question in 1 or 2 words. And he doesn't shower you with compliments. And so yeah, everybody's happy, 10,000 new users a day, real good. And then Nick goes, yeah, great. So how do we get to 50,000? And yeah, the first reaction was like, haha, Nick, good one. And then, you look at him and you see the face like, he's not joking. And that's kind of what happens with a lot of goals. The first time you hear our KPIs, it's like, how can I even get there? But at the end, we end up doing it and we end up achieving it. And I think our values is a real good representation, I mean, the best representation of what the company is all about. And our values is exactly what pushes us forward. So real quickly, it's get it done. Depending on where you sit, you might be able to see that it actually says get shit done, just SH or kind of like really, really light gray. So really inconspicuous. So get shit done, think deeper, never settle, and stronger together. I'll explain the get shit done story after in a little bit. It's quite good. So these are the 4 values that not only explain what Revolut as a company is all about, but it also explains how do we select people and how do we make our daily decisions at work that that drive our growth. Now, in order to make sure that our values is not just something that we have on, coffee mugs or the neons on the walls or t-shirts, there are also various processes of how we make sure that the values are embedded in our everyday life. So it starts with the recruitment. Every hiring manager and every recruiter has familiarized themselves with a very refined process of recruitment. And we have specific sets of questions on each of the values. So each of the 4 values that I just showed has the specific list of questions that helps us, understand if the candidate knows and is on the same page, what those values mean, what they're all about. Because, if you take a step back and think about how every startup is founded, when you have 2 founders and the statistics that says that 9 out of 10 startups fail within the first year, your only goal as a startup then is just to survive. And so you really work a lot and, it's your baby. So every startup founder is, like that, you don't sleep, you don't eat, you just build your startup. And naturally, when you're looking for people to help you build that startup, you look for people who are very like-minded because you don't have time to waste on arguments, on discussions, and to make sure that, we're all on the same page. You need to be on the same page and you need to start delivering fast because, again, the competition is out there. So, the personas of the founders, that we define the first, 10 people that get hired in the company. Then those 10 people define the next 100, and this 100 defines the next, 500 people that are hired. And, this is how the culture ripples to a point. But then there is a point where, you become all of a sudden a company of 2,100 people and, you have offices popping up all over the globe. And you're like, well, what do I do now to make sure that this culture is sustained in all those offices? That, if an office is opened in Singapore, that it doesn't operate like a separate microcosmos, that it's still, this culture that we are building in the headquarters. So this is why, again, it starts with the recruitment. We just really need to make sure that people that we hire are still on that same page as, the company was since the early days. The onboarding process as well. So there's a week planned for every new joiners, starting with a lot of introductions, to culture, to different processes. Sure, you get the pretty merchandise, the employee handbook, making sure that, again, during the onboarding, the values are communicated to you every step of the way. Even, the first days when we introduce the way we work. So, the main tools at Revolut for daily work is Jira and Confluence, and I'm sure finally I'm in a room where I don't have to explain those things. But when I say the main tools, that starts with, our receptionist. So if you walk into the Revolut's office in London, the reception, and you ask, the receptionist to do anything for you, she's like, yeah, sure, let me just submit a Jira ticket for that. And, that's it, which doesn't typically happen in a lot of companies with a front desk. But so this is, how we introduce that. The performance reviews is then our way to show that this is the kind of behavior that we endorse. And the kind of behavior that we endorse is coming from those values. So this is not only the values, isn't only how we hire people, it's also how we fire people. The goal is to fire at least, about 10% of employees after every performance review. And I say goal, and that sounds brutal. But for a startup, again, it's very understandable to think that the company grew from 700 people to 2,100 people in just 1 year. You see that, the change is happening fast. And a lot of people have very specific skill sets that are only good, for a certain amount of time. And we need to make sure, again, that we are renewing as a company every step of the way and that we don't stagnate. Not a lot of startups choose to talk about that because it is a bit of an awkward subject, but that really is the reality. So, our goal is to retain the top performers, and to make sure that people, who would have a better life elsewhere are able to find that as well. And really, any daily decisions we make, any projects we run, to make sure that all those decisions are made based on those values. And again, that we don't waste time on arguing about them. So let's look a little bit deeper into each value. So never settle. At Revolut, that's all about ambition. So when we look for people that never settle, we look for people who love to win. So what happens today is that Revolut, you have, kind of like an exclusive club of people that are national or international sports champions, or, published book authors, or get up the Kilimanjaro like on a monthly basis, just because, they're these kind of overachievers that, really, really love to win. Never settling at Revolut is also about the passion, the love for what you do. And, it's easy to say love for what you do, but there's actually one story that happened to me during my own onboarding week, and I've been with the company for 2.5 years now. And that story to me was the best example that showed what never settle is at Revolut. So again, my first week, we're done with work, and at night we're like, okay, let's go down to a pub for a couple of drinks. So we go down, and one of our engineers is paying for the round with a contactless payment. And he touches the card to the POS, and the POS then makes this funny beep, like, not the normal your payment went through kind of beep. And then, for that split second, Ali, the guy, is paying, and he just freezes there, looking at the card, looking at the POS, nothing. And then, the payment goes through, the thing beeps, it's all good. And then Ali is like, oh, fuck, thank God. Every time this happens, my first thought is if I'm going to have to go upstairs, sit at the computer and figure out what's wrong with the app. And I'm like, oh my God, yeah, this is actually one of the guys who, wrote the code, and this is why the card that I have in my hand is working. So, that was a fun thing to realize. But also to see that, he didn't question the fact that he is going to go upstairs and look for a bug in the app. Because, early years, there were a lot of, today there are a lot of bugs in the apps. And he never questioned the fact that, he's going to go upstairs, because again, that was a company at a time we were around 90 people, 90, so 2.5 years ago. So, when you're one of the first employees and your app, the one that you wrote the code for, doesn't work, you really treat it, as your brainchild, as your baby. So obviously, if it doesn't work, you are going to, go upstairs and look for the bug. And it was just like a split-second thing. There were like 4 or 5 developers around him as well. And everybody had the same look. They were looking at the POS and like, please, don't make me go upstairs. Don't make me go upstairs, that thing. So that's the passion that, we mean at Revolut, that you are really passionate to see your work happen and to see your work be successful. And excellence is, of course, about striving to become better at it every day. Because, when you love what you do, you look for better ways to do it. You look for new ways to do it. This is when you innovate and iterate. And this is the kind of, motivation that we're looking for in the candidates. Stronger together is really a very easy one to explain. Without the stronger together, there is no Revolut. Because without the stronger together, it's just 2,000 amazing individuals who are doing their job amazingly, but individually. So, the fact that I'm good, hopefully, PR manager doesn't mean that I'm going to be able to disrupt the entire banking system on my own. But, because I'm the never settle kind, I love to win, and I love what I do, I do want to see myself disrupting the banking industry. So, again, for that, I need over 2,000 people to work with. So at Revolut, we understand that stronger together is being open-minded and understanding that good ideas can come from anyone. So meaning we, in team meetings and teamwork, we don't push our own agenda because, we want our idea to win. It has to be the best idea, not necessarily your personal idea. And it's not a great feeling to see your ideas rejected, something that you thought was great. But then, when your team gets to this victory, when you succeed and when you deliver and when you do it together, that feeling really makes it all worth it. Stronger Together at Revolut is about the, we don't play politics, really. Again, it's a zero ego game. We ask the candidates to check in the egos at the door and to, again, focus on what's best for the team. And at the end of the day, of course, when you treat people with respect, you get respect in return. A lot of people would think that Stronger Together sounds kind of like a synonym to, oh, just be friendly. And being friendly is kind of like, meh, soft skill. It's of course you should say that, you're stronger together, that you're nice and friendly. But with us, that's actually not just something that we say would be nice to have. That is, again, something that we deliberately look for in candidates. Just to, go back to our performance reviews that I mentioned before. Our values constitute 50% of your final score. So we only have 2 questions relating to your performance. So one is about the quality of your work, and the other is about the speed of your work. That's 50% of the score. The other 50 is coming from the values. So, if you're falling short on one of the values, your score is going down. And, that's going to reflect on your bonus promotions, etc. So the fact that, you're an amazing engineer, but you're a toxic person to work with, that means it's just not going to work, and that there is a way to document that. Also, the way we design our company goals and KPIs. So, we have 5 overall company goals for a year. Then those company goals are trickled down into department KPIs. Then every team in the department has to come up with team KPIs that would support the department KPIs. And then, of course, from the team KPIs, you go to the individual ones. All of those are documented in real time in our own people platform that is called Revoluters, not very originally, but it's a good tool. And so everybody can track everybody's KPIs at any time. I can log in and check out how the retail product is doing, or how the trading team is doing, down to every single person to see how are they getting on. And again, my individual KPIs could be good, but if my team is underperforming, then that means we don't get to the department KPIs. And if our department doesn't deliver, that again is reflected on my personal score. So we try to make sure that, again, Stronger Together is not just, a fluffy, nice thing to say, but that it's actually documented and tracked. Think Deeper is, to me, kind of how the idea of Revolut came about. Because thinking deeper at Revolut is going beyond the surface. It's questioning the status quo and asking why again and again and again till you get, to the truth of it. So, coming back to the idea when Nick and Vlad was pitching the idea of Revolut to investors, again, people wouldn't give them money because nobody thought that this idea was possible. Actually, I don't really have time, but it's a really good start. When Nick was looking for a CTO, so he needed a technical person to kick off the idea. And he introduced this idea to Vlad, who is currently our CTO and co-founder. Even Vlad, so imagine the co-founder of the company wasn't too quick to buy into this idea. So what he did, they were both working at Credit Suisse at the time. So Nick quit and Vlad didn't. Because he didn't think that this would take off. So what he did, he would only meet Nick during his lunch breaks, tap the code for like an hour, hour and a half, and then go back to Credit Suisse. So it's a normal life, real job. And that went on for like 2-3 months. So for me to think that your co-founder, who's also working in payments, wasn't sure if this whole idea was possible, that just shows how radically different the whole idea was at the time. That even people in finance didn't see it happening. But that is what, again, questioning the status quo is all about, when you, again, go beyond what you're used to seeing. So, of course, people were kind of used to banking services being, expensive and clumsy and ugly apps or no apps. But, you're just kind of used to that. So, evidently, it can't really be better than that. But it could. So, that is the structured thinking that we're talking about, breaking down the problem into the smallest particles to understand where is it coming from. Questioning, what it is that I can change, what I cannot, and how do all those small pieces work together. Thinking deeper at Revolut is also about this, what we call raw smartness. And that means being able to act on logics and data and not on gut. So, things like kind of my intuition is telling me, is not a good argument at Revolut. You always need data or any kind of evidence. And, there are different ways to understand data, because some teams, for example, a couple of weeks ago, I was onboarding a new member to the PR and marketing team. And the girl was like, well, I'm not a data scientist. I'm not a data engineer. What kind of data are you expecting, from me? What kind of evidence should I, bring to support my arguments? And that is a valid question, yeah, but, there are different ways to look at it. Again, very small story, from our internal anecdotes. One of our product owners who is still responsible for the send and request money function in the app, for those of you who hopefully use it, you know that one. And he was reworking the flow of it. And he's finally down to 2 options, so option A, option B. And he comes to Nick, so the CEO, and he goes, okay, so these are my 2 options, and I'm gonna go with A. And Nick, again, strong Russian man with few words, he looks, no, go with B, and that's it. And typically you think, okay, so the CEO challenges your decision, might be a good idea to maybe rethink that, go back to it. But then Pierce, what he said is like, yeah, no, Nick, you know what? I actually just went down to the street and spoke to 20 random people, and 15 of them chose A, and only 5 of them said that they preferred B. So this is why I'm going with A. And then Nick is like, okay, fair. and that was the end of it. So, for me, that's, again, very small story, but a good proof of how we understand evidence, and that you need something to back up your decisions, because that's, the thinking deeper as we understand it. And the hyperlogical, yes, the questioning the status quo and challenging the reality that a lot of people are just used to, but that, can be done in so many different ways. And finally, my favorite, the get shit done. So that's actually... nobody at Revolut is ever going to say get it done. It's always going to be get shit done, because it's again coming from the early startup days when your end goal is survival, and when people are tired and maybe something's not going right, and you ask someone what to do, the answer would always be the same: just get your shit done, and you can never go wrong with that. So getting shit done at Revolut is about ownership, meaning that we own up not only to our successes, but also to our mistakes. Because what happens then, the worst thing you can do if something doesn't work, the worst thing would be to go around and look for people to blame, or for anything else that you can blame for this loss. And the only thing we are doing is, we look for ways how to iterate, how to fix it. And then, from fixing that, we at least have the data about the situation that, if you get into this doesn't work, and this does. The grid is this ability to break down walls. If you remember the video from the beginning. Oh, time, yes. Just 2 seconds. When Nick said that, we were all non-bankers and we needed to do it. We just needed to get shit done to have it. And we did. And the bias to action is a very common notion in many tech companies. Over-analysis in many cases leads to missed opportunities. And they say it's better to ask for forgiveness rather than permission, so it's kind of that thing. Maybe not in fin crime or compliance teams, then it's good to ask for some permissions. But you get what I mean. When in doubt, get shit done and just iterate from there. And if things don't work out the first time, at least then you'll have the data. At the end of the day, whatever it is that we're building and those ways that are taking us there, is to create this 10x value for the customers. And by 10x value, we mean this expression in people's faces when, again, people tell you, no, you know what, that sounds like it's too good to be true, or I don't think this product, is possible at all. And then you're able to show it that, yeah, it's already happening and we already have it. So that's, the surprise, and when people see that, yeah, it can actually be 10x better. But the main thing to remember is that we haven't won yet. So, whatever milestones we get to, whatever new markets we launch, we still operate on the day one mentality. We know that, it's still not a given. So every day when we go to work, of course, you celebrate for like 5 minutes, whatever milestone you get to, but you still haven't won. So every new day is a new sort of battle to go into. It is tiring and it is challenging, but it's more rewarding than anything I have ever been involved in. And apparently that is all I have for you today. I nearly made the time, I think. So I think we might have some questions, or maybe not. Maybe it was all crystal clear.
Yeah, I'm on. Cool. So yes, we don't have time for any questions, but we will still do them. Boom shakala, surprise. And we will do the two hottest questions we have here with 430,000 likes and with 380,000 likes.
Nice. Big room.
Made up numbers here. So question number one is how Revolut is protected under which country? Pum, pum, pum.
Oh, easy. So now, for the most part, we're operating with the UK electronic money license issued by the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK, which is our main regulator for now. However, we now have 2 additional licenses in the European Union. So that was part of our Brexit contingency plan, because we saw, that clearly one day or another Brexit was coming. So we knew that we would have to do something with the customers that are not UK residents and nationals, but are still banking with the UK entity. So now what we're doing is we are migrating the customers from the UK electronic money license to the European electronic money license for them to be able to use our services after Brexit. However, we also have a banking license in Europe, and we'll also be applying for banking licenses in all the new continents that we launch. So yeah, banking license in Europe, and Singapore and Japan and Australia, there are very specific names for it. So I won't be able to quote the exact title, but those are equivalents of like the European electronic money license. And so as far as the funds, because I'm pretty sure, because people were asking about the funds. So with electronic money licenses, what happens is your funds are safeguarded in the any of the big banks, really. So with us, it's mostly Barclays and HSBC, I think. That means that your money is sitting in a segregated account in a top-tier global bank, international bank, and that means that we cannot touch it. So even if Revolut goes bust, then you will still be able to collect your money from the segregated account.
So not losing money.
Nope.
And grand final question of the day is, what is main Revolut innovation?
Well, I
obviously a funny question.
Yeah, no, it's a nice one. So I would say the first steps towards this global bank. Because now for me to think that you are able to send money from, let's say, Europe to Singapore or Australia for free and in a second, and to open a local account in Australia or again in Singapore in 2 minutes, to me that is quite a radical change from the banking system that we've had today, which was cumbersome, which was ineffective and slow and expensive. So yeah, these are the first steps, and I understand that to get to the end goal, the global domination, that's going to be a lot of different regulators to work with. But bit by bit, it's only been 4 years for now, so yeah, we're getting there.
Sounds like the Empire stuff. Global domination. Satellites and prisons all over the world. Okay, so...
Your words, not mine.
Yeah, those are my words. So a round of applause for Ieva.
Thank you.